is telling us as men to be common, to fall in line, to fall short of any visions or plans God has for us. But what about being uncommon? This is a movement of men seeking to build an eternal legacy. A journey of men on mission to rise above the common, to experience sustainable life change. This is Uncommon Disciple. Welcome to the Uncommon Disciple podcast. My name is Michael Bowen, and with me as always is Jared Gibson and our very special guest, Brad Langrag.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Brad.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Absolute pleasure being here.
It's good seeing you.
Yeah, you as well.
Yeah, it's been a while in the making.
It has been.
Since we've discussed little background. Brad and I met about a year ago through a mutual friend of ours, and this friend of ours was doing electrical work in our jiu-jitsu academy. And Brad walked in. I don't think you know this, Jared. I don't think I ever told you the story.
No.
And Brad walked in, and I was like, "Yeah, who's this guy walking in?" And our friend Kyle said, "Hey, Brad, I want you to meet my friend Mike." And it started up a conversation, and I really enjoyed speaking to him and got to know him a little bit more a few months later. And then, as you know, when we launched our Bible study, Brad launched one right next door at Burley Brewing.
Yeah.
And so on Monday mornings, he's over there leading a bunch of men in Bible study when the bar's closed, obviously.
Yes. Yeah,
It's not beers and brews and Bible.
It's not. Yeah, the taps are plugged.
But yeah. So how's it going?
It's going great. It's Promise Principles has been just an absolute blessing for me. So I started a Facebook page called Godly Men of Castle Rock, and I knew I wanted to continue to evolve that. And one of the next steps was a men's group. And so when I first joined yours, and going back to our introduction, it was definitely introduction by God.
Sure.
I mean, absolutely. I feel truly blessed that you came into my life and introduced me to this program, and I just felt so compelled. I mean, I don't know. I think I only went to yours for a few months before God pushed me. It's like, here we go.
Yep.
And every obstacle was just kind of fell away for me to say, well, no, I don't know if I can do this, but just to facilitate one of these is an absolute pleasure.
Brad, we usually do a little introduction about our guests, but I've left it to just the description on the podcast, so we don't bore the audience with this long introduction. But I do want to talk a little bit about your family, how you got to Castle Rock, Colorado. You have a wife.
Yep.
Miss Tracy is your wife, and you have two girls at home, two teenage girls, I must say.
Yes.
And then I recently found out you have an older son.
I do.
So talk about your family a little bit.
Yep, I do. So it's my wife and I, actually, it's a second marriage for both of us. So I have a son from my first marriage. He is 25. He's almost 26. He'll be 26 here in about 2 weeks. So he's my surviving twin, but he's remarkable. So he came out here with me from Michigan, moved here from Grand Rapids, and graduated from Denver Christian his senior year. He's like, Dad, I want to buy a house before I'm 50, and I can't do that in Colorado. So I'm going back to Michigan. So great kid. He's just like that old soul. So he bought his first house when he was 23, got married last year, doing very well. So came out here and unfortunately got divorced after I moved out here to Colorado, and, went about my way. And unfortunately, I kind of lost my relationship with God a little bit during my marriage. Tried to find God again after I got divorced, but, didn't do a real good job about it. Typical guy. And I finally gave that part of my life to God. And it's kind of a real cool story how my wife and I met, and I'll get into that later. But, I gave that part of my life to God, and he brought me Tracy.
You know what I love, Brad, what you just said, and I'm sure Jared caught up on it as well. He didn't go and blame everyone else for the fallout of his marriage. He just took ownership immediately.
Yeah.
And that's not something common that most guys do, Brad. And obviously, this is the Uncommon Disciple podcast.
Exactly.
And so I'm grateful that that you in all humility that you admitted that you had some shortcomings, and that God, our God of grace, is a God of restoration.
Yeah.
And so he's restored you and given you an awesome wife and two beautiful daughters. And so, that's awesome.
Yeah. Crazy blessed. Yeah. It's, I always want more kids. Like I said, I had twin boys, and So it was pretty rough in the beginning when my one son passed, and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah. How many weeks was your first wife pregnant when?
So 27 weeks. So they're identical twin boys.
Yep.
And, my one son that passed was 1.5 pounds. And then Hayden was 905 grams. So 2 grams less than 2 pounds. So
Did she have to deliver both?
Yes.
Okay. So that's similar. C-section. I told you about this. This is similar to the story of Song and I as well.
Yeah.
Taya, I think we were 6 months into the pregnancy, and the doctors saw that there was more growth from one than the other, and they didn't have much concern at first. Mm-hmm. But then we had gone into one of our wellness checkups, and it was during one of the ultrasounds that the doctor, gave us the news that one of our twins had passed away, and it's in the last chapter of the book, The Brave. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I outline a whole chapter and just how faithful God was through that process.
Yeah.
But, I'll tell you, it was one of the hardest experiences and probably one of the biggest challenges in faith that I had at that time. And I didn't realize it because, like most men, I didn't process it correctly.
Right.
I just wanted to fix the problem, and get through it. And I look back now and know that I could have handled it a lot better than what I did, just based upon what I've learned. And I think that's where wisdom comes in when we get older, right?
Most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. I was 23 when I had her twins, and it definitely could have handled it much better. But so I gave up at, even the thought of having more kids after everything we went through, spending 3 months in the hospital. Yep. So when God brought me Tracy, he brought me 2 beautiful little girls. They're 1.5 and 3 when I came into their life. So they're my daughters. Now,
you weren't from Colorado originally.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, from Grand Rapids, Michigan originally.
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah, moved here in 2004.
So what did your growing up look like? Did you grow up in faith?
Man, I was blessed. I was absolutely incredibly blessed. I grew up in a strong Christian home. Honestly, I'm the only one divorced really in my entire family.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody's, just truly blessed with a strong, Midwest Christian family values. You don't find anymore, too much. So,
sure.
Definitely thank God daily for that I was able to grow up in that type of environment. So I was luckily I found Christ when I was a very young child. Again, I had some time that I stepped away.
Were you rebellious at all?
No, actually, it's all my best friends I went to church with them.
Yeah.
So I went to church camp.
Nothing, no rebellion at all.
No, man. I did some dumb stuff as a teenage kid, but I think all of us done that. For the most part, no. I had my fear of my parents. It's
sometimes I feel like I'm the only heathen behind the microphone. Jared and I had a joke the last time we did the podcast. When we did one with him.
Yeah,
he was talking about these bad kids. And he's describing the bad kids. I was just kind of biting my lip, and I'm going.
Now, my parents.
Those were actually the good kids in our school,
right? My parents might have a little bit different story, but as far as in my head, I was a great kid.
Yeah, there you go. Right, good. No, but you would know.
Yeah.
There were things in my childhood that I went, oh yeah, I definitely deserve that one.
Yeah.
Or that was probably not something I would want my son doing.
Right.
At 12, 13, 14 years old.
Yeah. Well, that's why my girls aren't allowed to date till they're 16. So
16?
16. Yeah.
I think I told Tay at like 21.
Yeah.
Like I said, as long as you're under my roof, no dating.
Yes. Yeah.
You get married. I'm going to marry you off immediately.
Exactly. Yeah. They know how protective I am. So it's like, I'm trying to give in a little bit. It's like, okay, you date at 16, but it's group dates. It's like all your friends, public, daylight.
So what did your faith experience look like? When did you give your heart to Christ? Do you remember? You remember that time?
Man, I was probably, first, second grade. I remember, I lived out in the country and it was at a Bible school. I mean, that was a couple years ago. So I vaguely remember that. And, when I did get married, unfortunately, my now ex-wife wasn't a Christian, and I brought her to Christ, but it was a struggle. She felt
so you married a non-believer.
I did. She became a Christian before we actually got married.
Yeah.
But going to church was a fight.
Wow. What did that look like with your family?
My mom was hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
Did they warn you?
No, my folks were, kind of kept to themselves.
Yeah.
But, through the marriage, I could see the struggles.
Sure.
My folks, especially my mom, really had a hard time with my ex-wife. And, it was tough. And, it kind of hurt my relationship with my folks and obviously hurt my relationship with God. And I gave up. And that was one of the worst things I could have done.
And obviously Tracy was a believer when you guys got married.
Yeah. So she grew up Catholic with her ex-husband, actually found a Christian church. Her story's kind of funny because it was here in Colorado. She came here for college.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's absolutely amazing. I don't know how I got her. God, I thank God daily, believe me. But she went to a Christian church, and her first experience at a Christian church, she's just like, it was so enlightening. Mm-hmm. She's like, I learned something. I enjoyed that. I felt it. Yeah. It wasn't the typical where the Christian or the Catholic.
Well, God spoke to her. So a lot of times, and my wife grew up Catholic as well.
Yep.
But she got saved in a Catholic youth camp. Did you know this, Jared? Did I tell you this?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Wow. So she got saved. There was a born again infiltrator in the Catholic youth group that they were in. Ranks. And literally, like they had hey, you want to give your heart to Christ?
Right.
Here's the gospel message. And as soon as she gave her heart to Christ, the spiritual attacks started occurring. But interestingly enough, that she got saved in that environment, but she didn't know, like she would show up for Catholic church and it's more of a show, right? And, the teaching of the word of God is somewhat absent. There's a lot of things that overshadow that. So when you go into a Bible teaching church and you go, wait a second, this is, the Bible, right? Like that's what I'm supposed to be listening to. That's what I'm supposed to be reading. That's what I'm supposed to be learning from. Yeah. It's a new experience. So that was Tracy's experience, obviously. Well. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So pretty amazing. But yeah, like I said, it's I'm blessed because she was a Christian actually. So we met online, and it was, I had some plans that fell through. And so I put it on a dating site. Hey, plans fell through. Anybody want to, go grab dinner or whatever. And Tracy was the first person that sent me a message, and it just says, I'm a single mom, Christian, and a teacher. And that was the only thing she said.
Yeah.
And so I replied back, sounds perfect.
You're like, I got big muscles and I'm handsome.
So, that's literally how our conversation was. So we kind of text back and forth for a while and finally had our first date at Chili's. Big spender,
hey,
and it worked somehow, but yeah.
You were being a good steward.
I was, but it was cute because there was actually, I got up to go to the restroom again. It's just kind of a cute story. Got up to go to the restroom. There's an older couple on the table next to us, and she leans over. She goes, "You guys are such a cute couple. How long have you been married?" And my wife and Tracy's like, "Well, this is kind of our first date." She goes, "Oh, honey, this is gonna last."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, just kind of cool.
But someone had some spiritual discernment.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man. Yeah. Even leading up to it, both of us went through the whole dating thing and both had just terrible experiences. Just terrible. And we both had the same prayer. We both gave that part of our life to God. Yep. And we talked about it. It was the same night. Had to be within minutes that we both had that conversation. It's like, all right, God, if I'm meant to be in a relationship, great. You bring that person to me. If I'm not, if I need to focus on myself or focus on you, cool. Then that's what I've done. And God brought us together.
Obviously, the commitment to Christ is, my dedication to my wife. I love her tremendously. But I think what scares me even more is having to go back to some type of dating scene or something. Like, I don't know if I'd ever want to do that.
The further you get away from it.
Everyone that I know guys that are, that they think, well, I think it'd be better if, we just split up. And then I just hear the horror stories and I'm like, man, that's, just wait for the Lord. He's going to work it all out.
Yes.
Don't run and try to get ahead of what God has for you.
Yeah.
But, Brad, the side story to us meeting was that you actually worked for a vendor that because Kyle was an electrician.
Yep.
And you worked for a vendor. And actually Kyle just walked out of here finishing up jiu-jitsu. And he was talking about how crappy that company is now. And I won't mention its name.
Yeah.
That, he's like, I just don't get the same level of service for when you were there, Brad. But, during COVID, you had some interesting things happen. And that's what I thought, as I was praying about having you on as a guest, I thought, man, Brad stepped out in faith and started a business, right? He's your VP of this big organization in town called the Dads of Castle Rock, which, I'm a member of, if you will. I haven't been really involved in it just because of the things that we've got going on here right now. But I told you I'd like to see, some more traction in that area. And you're raising two beautiful teenage girls. You're, a good husband to your wife. And you are probably, I don't know if I see anyone running around this town helping people more, whether it be the guys that are calling you like, hey man, I'm in really bad shape right now. I need someone to come and pick me up. Or Miss Lisa calls you from Burley and says, hey, I need someone to hang lights in my, my outdoor gazebo area.
Yep.
Or I need something fixed at my house. You're the first guy that'll jump in his car and go help.
Yep.
And the heart of helping, right, is something that's, again, not common in society. A lot of times we make excuses.
Right.
I'm too busy. I can't do it. Or, but you find time to do all of these things. And so, I want to dig in a little bit to what called you to step out in faith to start your own business? Because I'm sure a lot of guys, even during COVID or even right now, might be navigating decisions as to whether or not should I leave my nice, comfy job.
Yep.
I'm looking at Jared specifically because I have a gifting and I believe God has gifted me to go and do something else. Yep. But also, hey, I'm involved in an organization that really is doing a lot of awesome things in this community, and you're looking to go nationwide with this, with this organization as well, Dads of Castle Rock, and what that looks like. So let's dig in a little bit. What led you to start your own company, and some of the fears that you might have had doing that, and what God was speaking to you, through those times.
Yep. Fears I still have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always been an entrepreneur by heart, in spirit. I've always had something on the side, some kind of side hustle. And, I got into construction right out of high school. I tried college, wasn't for me. And so I became an electrician, started doing that, and I loved it. I love working with my hands. I love learning new skills. And that just continued to evolve. And when the economy kind of, where I came out here, the economy started getting really bad in Michigan.
What year?
So I moved here in 2004. Okay. So the couple of years leading up to that.
So 4 years prior to us, when we originally moved out here, we moved here in 2008.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it started getting really bad. So I started looking, and, again, it's, gave it to God. I'm like, all right, where am I supposed to be? I honestly was looking at Tennessee and Colorado were the two. My only experience in Colorado was I was like, I think 12, and we took a family trip out here. Yeah. And I still remembered some of the views I saw here. I'm like, all right, I loved Colorado.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much I was in love until we got out here. But I started looking out this way, and I looked for work in Michigan, and there was just nothing available. And at that point, I was in management already with contractors, and there was nothing there. So I started looking out here. Within a week, I had a half dozen job offers. I had companies flying me out here. And I started talking to a company that I did business with, a big national company I did business with in Michigan, and they offered me a job. But it's getting into sales, something I haven't done before. I'm like, okay, why not? Let me give this a try. This company's been around the 1800s. I'm moving my family across country. Job security would be pretty nice. So I did that. Ended up jumping into sales, worked for them for 12 years, ended up being very successful over there as their top sales rep for majority of the time I was over there. Me and one other guy kind of battled over that top spot for the most part, and still good friends with.
That's by design, by the way.
Exactly. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So after kind of getting burned out there, so I'm a firm believer that you leave work at work, and I don't want to bring that home to my family. And I talk to a lot of younger people that when they're looking at trying to make a career, it's like, find something you enjoy. Don't chase the money. Find something you enjoy, because unfortunately your work is such a huge piece of your life. It's going to impact the rest of your life.
Yep.
And it's not the financial part. It's the mental part. It's taking it home to your kids, taking it home to your wife. And
they say, if you find something you love doing, you'll never work a day in your life.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I have heard that. Yeah, I have heard that.
That's not a Bible verse, but I've heard people say it, and I believe that it's true.
I believe that. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. But so I had it. I had one time that I came home and I was just burnt out, stressed out, and I made my girls cry. And I'm like, that's it. I can't do this that way. I broke my cardinal rule, and so it just so happened God had another opportunity, and that was actually the company that I just left that Kyle was talking about. I went to work for a manufacturer, and fantastic company, Christian family that owns it. Actually, a single gentleman that owns it. His grandfather started. So I was there for a little over 6 years. But back when I was at this previous place, the distributor, I came up with this idea. I had a fencing company, believe it or not. And dealing with the labor issues I was dealing with, trying to keep my guys busy, or, sometimes I had too many guys, sometimes I didn't have enough guys. And I came up with this labor share idea for construction. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. God just kept it pinned there. And I'm very borderline OCD. perfectionist. So I kept just kind of going through in my head over and over and over. And it just kept coming back up. And a lot of things, what I do is I keep everything God-centered, and I, every major decision that I make in my life, buying a house, stuff like that, I focus on what God's saying to me.
For sure.
And so this is one of them that I would try to push it forward, and I would hit a big wall. And so finally in 2018, I tried to give it a push again, and it just took off. God said, yep, it's time. So everything's in God's timing, not ours. That's so hard for us to remember.
Yeah.
I do it. Believe me, I every week I still do it. It's like, oh, wait, not my time.
Yes.
So I got my company up and launched and started to spin that up. And I've got a big philanthropic plan for the company. And, going back to what you're saying, I love to give. I love to do for others. And so, I'm the Dad's a Cast Rock is part of my way of giving. And so I started this company as well. And the umbrella of company is an incubator. And I want to take people that where I was at 10 years ago who didn't have money, didn't have resources for developers and all that kind of stuff. It's a software company, and take their ideas and just build it for them. Take all the stress out. They don't have to worry about anything. Bring them in and build their company for them. And then once we get it built and up and going, roll them out, and now they're their own boss.
Got it.
So I want to start. That's my dream. So the philanthropic piece of it, we also started, my wife and I started a nonprofit, and what she's going to run. So actually, she just put notice in that she's a teacher now. So she put notice that she's not going to be back for next year. And so she's going to run that. But 10% of all her profits are going to go into that nonprofit.
Bro, we need good teachers.
We do. Yeah, we do. But I don't think I can make her teach another year. She's so fried.
Listen, we've known a lot of teachers, police officers, teachers that we've spoken to that are quitting their jobs in droves. Because it's
been a rough few years.
It's been a rough few years for sure.
Yeah. COVID didn't happen. My wife was blessed a couple of years ago. She was able to get out of the classroom, and she's a reading specialist. She's got a master's in elementary literacy. So she's still dealing with, working with kindergarten, first, second grade teachers, still in the school, but luckily not in the classroom, which is much harder. Not to discredit what she's dealing with, but the classroom teachers are definitely have a bigger struggle.
So what kind of setbacks are you facing, starting the company? Like, are you facing any big challenges right now that really, you talked about it? Yeah, there's still some fear.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone feels like that. Even when I started our companies, it was just, there was always the doubt, the enemy, speaking this lie to my head. Yeah, you're not going to make it.
It's crazy.
There's no way. And, then, the phones get slow, and then you start going, oh crap, did I make the right decision? Right. So what are some challenges you're facing right now early on?
Yeah. So, I mean, growing up again, I mean, it's, I was raised, you take care of your family, period, no matter what. I mean, you are the provider. And there's, this morning, honest God, I woke up at 5 a.m. with anxiety that, the revenue's not coming in yet and sales aren't there yet. But, the biggest struggle I'm dealing with is where to invest my time.
Mm-hmm.
The sales and marketing, obviously, that's where I'm really good at. And, I've got a great team, but most of my team is all part-time.
Yep.
So they all have full-time jobs. So they're helping where they can. So it's me drinking from a fire hose right now. And it's like, okay, I'm 3 months in. I think I've spent maybe 2 weeks in sales.
Yep.
So obviously revenues aren't going to come if you don't have sales, but I can't believe how much other things had to get done to work on. So it's an eye opener.
Hey, a motivator to feed your family is good motivation. That's actually biblical, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. And in 1 Timothy 5:8, it says, anyone who does not provide for their own relatives, especially their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than a non-believer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, well, I'm just doing it because I'm a hard worker or a nice guy. It's like, no, that's biblical to provide for your family. And as men, we're to be providers and protectors. We talk about it a lot here on the podcast.
Yep.
So that's a good motivator.
It's definitely a good motivator. Yeah. It's again, I want to try to get this nonprofit going, get my, make sure that Tracy can, be done working. And our youngest is going into high school. Our oldest is going to be a senior. So I want my wife to be able to spend some time with the senior before she goes off to college. She wants to go out of state for college. Spend time with the 14-year-old that make sure she stays on the right path, has the right friends, gets her schoolwork done.
Yep.
Let her be a mom, but in, part-time, run this nonprofit. So she's also on a board of directors for another nonprofit, which is the Cast Rock Food Pantry.
Got it.
So she's part of that as well. So she's in the same line with I am as far as the philanthropic.
Good. Yeah, there's a principle in the extreme ownership stuff that we've read, right, Jared, and the muster that we've gone to, the FTX thing that I was just at in Dallas this week. One of them is prioritize and execute, right? So it sounds like you're going through a lot of prioritizing right now and looking where to make that shift in order to execute.
Yep. God does a great job reminding me because, again, like I said, I mean, even just this morning, I had some anxiety, and then I pop on my Facebook, and I have a lot of different biblical pages that I follow and stuff. So I have a lot of scripture that pops up on my page, which is great. And so it's amazing the ones that I swear are just directly to me. You know, I swear I'm going to scroll up and it's going to just disappear because it's just for me.
Yeah.
And it's just God reminding me.
Have you ever brought a friend in church and the pastor starts preaching? Jared, has this ever happened to you?
Oh, absolutely.
Or even to you?
It's happened to me multiple times.
And then I'm looking at my wife going, did you tell the pastor?
Yeah.
You know, like about that fight last night?
Right.
Because it's like, he's talking to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I get it.
We have that with our church. Yeah. I joked with my pastor. I'm like, dude, stop looking through my window. Stop going through my mail. I don't know where you're getting this information. I don't know if Tracy's telling you what, but hey, stop it.
The Holy Spirit.
It's amazing. I brought some new people to church, and it's sitting next to them and tears coming down their face because all of a sudden it was the same thing. They just felt moved, you know?
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit before the podcast, and, you know, with this season of busyness, right? It's a lot of times as men, we can forget what is priority in our lives, right? And we always say, you know, like the faith, family, finance, fitness, right? Fun, right? Yeah. Making sure that we're having fun while we're going through life together. But where, you know, how do you protect your marriage as you're navigating these different priorities?
So my mantra has always been God, family, work. I live and die by that. And, you know, we're guys, so obviously I thrive on being successful at work. I thrive on, you know, being in sales. I thrive on being successful and have those numbers and hit my numbers and stuff like that. But always going back to make sure that the wife is taken care of and the kids are taken care of. You know, I tease my girls all the time that, you know, I'll kill for you and I'll die for you. You upset your mother, I'm going to kill you myself. Just jokingly, but I got to keep my wife first. And that's one of the biggest things that I see in marriages today is that everybody's pouring their entire life into their kids. And then by the time those kids go off to college, they're sleeping next to a stranger. Yeah. And so I got to facilitate my men's group. I have the Dads of Cast Rock, which we've got a couple thousand men in there. And what I keep telling them, date your wife. Date your wife. Always date your wife. And it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. You don't have to go to some high-end steakhouse. Go take a walk together. My wife and I do a little 6-mile loop, but it takes us an hour, 15 hour, 20 minutes to go through it. We sit and talk the whole time. Yeah. You know, you got to find that
That's
time.
good. You know, because I think as guys, we think that a date night or some time with our wives is defined of like some romantic night. A lot of times our wives just want our time and attention. Right. They just want us to put the cell phone away. They don't want us checking our computers. They just want us alone. And being available to talk or listen. And I think that's important. I mean, I think it's important if you're listening, guys, and you're trying to figure out what to do with your wife, spend time with her.
And don't expect a return. Like in my early 20s, you know, when I was first married, like I always thought of the one outcome, right? Like, and instead of like actually pouring the time that she needed into it, I was like, okay, let's just get to the fun stuff. But you know, if the fun stuff happens, then that means everything's healthy. But if the fun stuff's not happening naturally, then something's not healthy.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. And, you know, even some marriages that are really struggling right now, you can start dating your wife again. You know, I mean, you can still, you know, move towards that. And, you know, that's again, unfortunately, I have a number of friends that are going through divorce right now, and it's tough. It's tough to see all this, you know, pain on both sides.
You know, what's funny is as men, biblically, we have one responsibility, right, for our wives. The Bible says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of the water of the word, that he might present her to himself as a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or such a thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish.
Love it.
Loving our wives. We'll talk about that more when we come back. So we're back on the topic of loving our wives. You know, many people don't know that Jared was away on vacation last week, and loving our wives. And I'll just say this for myself, loving my wife is difficult with distractions sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Right. And my distractions are 3 kids in the house.
Yeah.
That are vying for my attention along with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where the prioritize and execute comes into play for me. Yeah. And Jared, you were in a 1-bedroom hotel room.
Yes.
Which I don't know what you were thinking. Number one, right? Right. I would not, like, sometimes we get a separate hotel room just for our kids because I don't want them in my room.
Right.
So anyway, how did you love your wife well in Mexico while you're on vacation?
First couple of days were easy, then you start getting through the week, and then you realize the spatialness that you typically are accustomed to here in the States is a little bit different in a hotel room. And, we were kind of like pecking at each other, like part of it. And it was because we had lost our communication, like just like what you had talked about. We were very dedicated to at least once a week. We go out, like we'll go get some tacos, or we've literally gone and like ordered food via like to our house and like been told the kids we're going up to our bedroom to watch a movie, like silly things like that. But one of the big things that, through the thick and thin, for us has been communication. Is we became best friends. That's and awesome. Being best friends in our marriage has been the thing that's kept us together, where no matter how upset we've gotten at each other and angry with each other, we've always had that friendship to fall back on, which then falls back on God, which then falls back, and then like everything then falls back into place. And so that's one of the things I'm grateful for. And on the trip, it ended up being a challenge. Like I would get like frustrated because like I just wanted to like get some quiet, and things like that. And then realizing part of the way through, I wasn't loving my wife. I was only thinking about me, and then I was like, oh man, I need to make this up to her. So I went and got her like a half day at the spa to like be like, I'm sorry.
Good man.
I was being cranky and, so like I wanted to honor her and give her a chance, because I was like, she's always dealing with the kids. She homeschools. I'm like, here I am throwing a pity party for myself because I can't get 5 minutes to think. And she always has the kids on top of her. And so I'm like, what? She needs more time away than I do. Yeah. So
no, good for you.
I came off of this men's summit in Dallas this week, and there was a pastor that was teaching in one of the sessions. And, it was an interesting, he's a very visual teacher. And he had taken some verses out of Ecclesiastes, which we know, some of it's argued that Solomon might have been in the fallen state when he wrote some of these. But the Ecclesiastes 3 starts off with, to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. And then he had gone into a time to love, a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace. And what was interesting is he busted out on the stage, he had laid out a tarp with all of these little beautiful clear vases, right? And he had hammers, a small hammer, a medium hammer, and a sledgehammer. And what was interesting to me is that the statement that he made is that if we approach everything with the same dynamic, we're going to lose, right? So imagine you walk into work and the way that you handle things at work, and you come home and try to handle your kids or your wife with that same dynamic, we're going to lose. Right. Or if we handle the way that we drive on the highway and someone cuts us off with the way we handle our wife when she doesn't do something the way we ask her to do it, we're going to lose. Right. And so he had taken these hammers and literally started smashing the vases. And he had posed a question. And it was from God's perspective. And what he had said is, imagine God saying, are you going to break everything I've given to you? Am I going to use a hammer on my wife when really she just needs a soft cloth and a soft touch? And then I wonder why I'm picking up broken pieces on the ground, trying to put her back together.
Wow, what an analogy.
And it really cut me to heart. Because I think sometimes if I'm honest, I can sometimes use the wrong dynamic with the way I handle my wife, and that causes me not to love her well. And man, I'm grateful that God doesn't handle me in that regard, that his grace and love pours out into my life. And so when I think about loving our wives well, right, men, what kind of dynamic are you using to handle your wife? Right?
Yeah. No, spot on. That's like I said, I love how he put it into perspective. He put it in, we're visual. God, men are visual. So, I mean, you're putting in a visual perspective, that something that we can really see, that's going to hit us hard.
Well, listen, I'm a construction worker's worst nightmare as a homeowner because I force things, right? Like if it doesn't fit, I force it in, right? It's like, it's going.
Contractors like you because they're making money off you. They're coming and fixing the stuff that you broke.
This sucker is going in. Kyle and I were talking about this. He had a situation at home and he had to like cut away part of like some molding to get a door on. I'm like, yeah, I just would have ripped the molding right off and like, it's good.
So in other words, you don't have any finesse.
Listen, okay, well, it's getting there. The older I get, the wisdom comes. Like, I don't want to have to go buy another one. So let me just take my time and work through it.
Yeah.
But really, again, I'm visual. When I saw this, I wondered, even with my kids, how am I handling them in a delicate? And am I breaking them, which is going to cause someone else to have to help put them back together when they're older. Mm-hmm. Right. So it was a good reminder. And I think that when we're open and teachable in that moment, it's a good place to be.
It is.
I don't just shut my heart down and go, you know what, I'm good. Like, yeah, that's just, because that's the way I grew up. It's the way my dad was.
Yep.
She's the wife. She's listening to whatever I say, make me coffee.
Yeah.
Right. That's the house I grew up in.
Right.
But that's not the dynamic that God has given me. And he's not the wife that he's given me. And it's not the man he's made me to be and wants me to be.
Yeah, that's incredible. Again, I mean, that's where I was blessed. My parents had a marriage that I've yet to find another one that parallels. Yeah. They just were deeply in love and passionate. There's just pictures don't exist without them holding hands or kissing. And they actually got married when they were 16 and 18. And then I lost my mom when she was 56. So they hit 40 years of marriage. But, it was, I grew up with that. I grew up watching that passion that they had for each other. And, so again, blessed to have something like that. But I again, like the analogy, again, I'm a little on the OCD side. So I want the dishwasher loaded a specific way. Yeah. So as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about me giving my wife crap about why can't you load it like this?
I'm not OCD. My wife is though.
My wife and kids, they just throw stuff in this dishwasher. It's always full. It's like, fine, hold on. Let me reshuffle it here. Look, it's only half full.
I'd be laughing at the background, like, look, there he goes.
Too many years playing Tetris.
Watch what I do to Brad now. I'm going to put the cup over here on this side where the plate should be.
I'll start twitching. My 14-year-old gets it. She yells at her 16-year-old because the 16-year-old put something in there. My 14, really? That's where it goes.
Yeah. Hey, let's take a shift to the Dads of Castle Rock. Jared, Jared has some involvement in Dads of Castle Rock. When I first moved to Castle Rock, I'm not a big social media guy. I'm starting to become one because that's what I'm told you have to do to make sure that the word and messages get out.
Yeah.
And Jared actually wasn't a big social media guy either.
Nope.
But there was this website here in Castle Rock as we were just trying to make local contacts as a family moving back in because we had been away for 9 years or so at that time. And this everyone was telling me, hey, you got to be on this Dads of Castle Rock. And I'll just be honest, Brad, when I first went on that, and it's for men only. I have to make that disclaimer.
Yeah.
It's not for wives to peek in on.
Yep.
Right. And if they do, you're probably going to get yelled at.
Yes.
Right. But it's gotten better.
It's better.
But when I first moved here, I was horrified when I went on that Facebook page. And I'm not saying that because I can't stomach that. I was in the military. Like right. I know the crudest of things.
Yeah.
But for me, there were some things that I just knew wouldn't be healthy for my eyes. And it's cleaned up. I mean, since that time, it's gotten 1,000 times better. And listen, I stayed on it because I'm like, hey, that's the exact place that we're called to be into, right? I'm not to run from these places, but I know that Brad's a believer and he's in there and he's having a positive impact and reaching guys for Christ in that community. Like, I'm not going to avoid a place where I can reach guys for Christ. And guess what? Most of the guys that were posting some of the things that they were posting, they were the most hurting guys in the group.
Yep.
They were the guys that were really using that as an outlet to say, I need help.
Yeah.
Right, Brad?
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit, how you got into Dads of Castle Rock, and Jared has a story that he wants to share about dads as well.
Yeah, it was definitely ran with some lawlessness in the beginning. Because again, we didn't know what this thing was going to do. It kind of started
as a joke.
It started as a joke.
Right?
Actually, there's a Moms of Castle Rock, and there's a Dads of Castle Rock started as a joke. And then, it just started building and building. And
this was all on Facebook. And for all the people out there that aren't in Colorado, give you a little background, social media group. I found out about it because I would see this guy called Robert Ziering here, and he would always post these really funny, sarcastic comments. I'm like, I'm going to go research and see what this is all about. Yeah.
One of the most introverted guys you'll ever meet. And he got behind that keyboard, and he's got a weird sense of humor, but it drew
that was like attention. His alter ego.
It was absolutely. Yeah.
He is an interesting dude. Man. He is a cool cat. Like I haven't spent much time with him, but the interactions that him and I have had here in front of the academy as, the events go on here locally, man, he's just the sweetest guy. Always willing to help. Again, just that heart of wanting to help people.
Yep.
And he's always been kind and courteous to me.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a good guy, and just very passionate about the city, very passionate about Dads of Castle Rock and where we want to take that ultimately. But again, we've had to clean it up. We've had to add some rules, and the rules actually kind of weeded out some of the guys that were, making some poor choices. But
you know what? He's a good leader.
He is a great leader. Yep.
He saw that a pivot was needed.
Yep.
And he said, hey, for the impact that we're having on in the community, it's necessary. If you guys want to go start a crew Dads of Castle Rock somewhere else, go do it. No problem. But where this organization is being led and the impact that you guys are making, he as a leader needed to make some difficult choices, which not everyone is going to agree with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was, it was 2019 when the page kind of got started. It was November of 2019 is when I filed all the paperwork with the IRS and Secretary of State and all that kind of stuff to get our 501c established. So it was end of 19. Finally got all of our paperwork approved into 2020. Of course, COVID hit, so that delayed that substantially. But nice thing with 501s, it's retroactive back to when we filed. So, but 2020, we raised $100,000, $150,000 our first year, and people realized we weren't a joke. That's everybody made fun of us when we first started got this going. But we literally were right out here in this parking lot. Me and 5 other guys sat around a table. Robert was one of those, and said, let's take this a step further. Let's get the 501 started. Let's make a bigger impact on this community. And it's just started to evolve Dads of Castle Rock. And it's turned into it's a place where guys go for help. Whether it's construction help or mental help. We've actually had 3 gentlemen that posted a suicide note on the page.
Yep.
Thank God we were able to find all 3 before they did anything bad. And give them the help that they needed. So it's turned into this really kind of community thing. So we do have our Dads of Castle Rock page, but yes, just for men. Got to live or work in Castle Rock, got to be a dad. And then we have our Dads of Castle Rock community outreach page, which is the actual 501c3, and that's open to everybody.
Yeah, and some awesome things have sprung from that.
Oh man,
yeah. Veterans of Castle Rock now, Godly Men of Castle Rock. It's kind of sprung from that. What's your funny story, Jared?
So the funny story with the Dads of Castle Rock, I 2020.
Oh, is this your ankle?
Yes. In 20.
Bro, this is funny. I don't know if I know the story. Does he know about this?
No, you don't know the story. So like I was
he's literally scarred for life.
Literally
Dads of Castle Rock.
So like I started getting involved in 2020 and was kind of like the guy that was kind of like in the back of the room for anything, and like I was just lurking, but then. I've always loved doing a lot of Halloween stuff with the kids and like decorating the house and doing like fun projects and like animation stuff. And like it gave me an excuse to do robotics with the kids and making displays. And I was like, the year prior, the kids had said, hey, Dad, do Ghostbusters. So I did my white truck up like the Ghostbusters truck and I built it up. And then the Dads of Castle Rock said, hey, because of 2020, we're going to do the outdoor trunk or treat. I'm like, sweet. I still got the Ghostbusters stuff. I have the Ghostbusters outfit. I've got everything.
Did you see this Ghostbuster truck?
I actually did. I do remember your truck. Yeah.
Good. It gets better. Listen to this.
So I pull up and I'm getting set up, and then one of the guys from Dads of Castle Rock, he's like talking to me, and I'm not paying attention, and we're chatting, and I'm like joking. and I go to step in my tailgate and I misstep and I roll my ankle, but then I slip with it rolled and I land sideways with my foot bent on my ankle and I feel pops and burning. And then like the guy, like some of the dads at Castle Rock, you run over, you okay, man? But my pride's filled up. I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. But on the inside, I'm like, don't cry. Don't cry.
Somebody give me a Snickers.
So I stood outside my truck. Like I couldn't even feel my ankle. Bro. I stood out there for 3 hours in that cold for the entire night. And then like my wife shows up and I'm like, you're probably going to be upset with me, but I may have hurt myself, but everything's okay. And then so she leaves. I get in my truck and I'm like, I can't even put pressure on my gas pedal. And then,
bro, show him the scar. Show him the scar.
You really have a scar?
I really do.
Yeah, for the viewers that can't see the scar on Jared's foot, like I didn't even know if he'd be able to start jiu-jitsu. He's got a 4.5-inch scar that runs down the side of his ankle. Right over the outside bone.
Chick stick scars, man.
Yeah.
I mean, hey,
so,
you're welcome.
Listen, the dads at Castle Rock literally scarred him for life.
You need to get a DOCR tattoo across that thing. I mean, come on.
Hey, did you guys have insurance? Like,
too late. I think it's
yeah. But like the funny thing about it is like, you know, like that they had to reconstruct the tendons. I dislocated and tore them and everything like that. But it's like literally, Dad's at Castle Rock's forever ingrained in my memory.
Who are you going to call? Ankle busters.
I don't know if you would have got out of there. That was our first trunk or treat. Yeah. And I remember it was a cold night. And they did, as pretty much trick or treat was shut down. We didn't do it on Halloween. We did it a couple days before, but we didn't realize how big that was going to be. But we had like 2,000 people show up. It was a 2.5 hour wait to get in.
I remember. We just moved to Castle Rock.
Yeah, we had to
we moved to September.
Okay,
and October is when the trunk or treat happened.
Yeah, it was insane. We had to do. I think we bought like $800 more in candy. We had to do emergency candy runs because everybody was running out of candy, and everybody brought candy. You know, that had a car there, and then we had some, but we had to go buy like $800. We bought out like Sam's Club. It was insane. And then this past year we had, I think, 2,500, almost 3,000 people that showed up.
So, bro,
crazy.
What are some other big events? Listen, I know Dad's has been instrumental in some major projects in the town.
Yeah.
Right. Recently, who does this? Shake Shack just opened up.
Yeah.
Right. And the first people they call is the Dad's at Castle Rock.
Yeah.
And said, hey, we want to get behind you guys, and gave out a bunch of free food.
Yep.
If you'll come in and just kind of give us some feedback. Yep. Right. So tell us some of the things that you guys have been doing that really, is launched in the community. The Bible says faith without works is dead. And I believe that God has you there for a reason, right? To model that in the community. Right. Yep. And so your influence within that organization is pressing into a service oriented model.
Yeah.
Right. So I love it. I love that when someone needs help. Listen, I've been on the website and I've given, right, where guys are like, hey guys, listen, I'm down to my last $10 and I lost my job. Mm-hmm. And within I'm not even kidding you. Within a few hours, the guy's got $3,000, can pay his rent for, the week, and has a pantry full of groceries. Yeah. No problem.
Yep.
So
we have a lot of those things. So we do have like a benevolence that we do fund. So we have a benevolence committee that includes Castle Rock's finest on our committee that will vet those. But we'll have those that come up that will just have something we want to kind of wrap our hands around, and we'll just throw it on the page. And it's just our Dad's at Castle Rock page, and it will. I mean, we'll come up with $5,000.
What are some of the big ones that you guys have worked on?
Well, the Marshall Fire was probably the biggest, most notable one
north.
Recently.
Sure.
So all the fires up there in Boulder. So the day of the fires, we put it out there saying, hey, you know what? We're going to do a food drive.
Yep.
And we're going to be over in the back corner of Sam's Club. Come drop off, your food, your diapers, whatever you can be. And we're going to be there from 8:00 until pretty much anybody when they stop going. And we had, just through our group, we lined up huge box trucks.
It got so big that you guys ran out of space.
We ran out of space. Yeah. So we had, of course, most listeners won't know, how this works, but the line of cars went around the parking lot of Sam's, down into the street, down the street,
I heard it was like a mile of cars.
So CDOT actually, luckily we have dads in CDOT. CDOT actually came in and helped direct traffic. It was insane. And I went at one point into Sam's, and we had literally people going in, parking, filling carts up and bringing carts out. So we had 2 or 3 people that the only thing they were doing is returning carts.
Yep.
We had so many carts coming out full of water and diapers and food. And it was just, the outpouring was just incredible what this town did. And we filled up multiple trucks, multiple trailers, multiple box trucks, and we sent it up there. And unfortunately, we ran out of places that were taking it. And we had so much overage. We had to hurry up. And again, we're pretty well connected with the town now. So reached out to the mayor and the town commissioner, and we were able to get into our fairgrounds, and they opened a space in their horse barn for us so we could put all of our overage into. And then we had to manage that for a couple months. But it worked out great. We actually had a local family that had a fire. They came in that night. I mean, you could still smell the smoke on them, tears in their eyes, loading up on, clothes for them and their kids, and food and everything like that. So it was kind of not only be able to help the community up there in Boulder, but, to go help local. Yep. And then we had food pantries that we filled. And so it took us about 2 more months to go through all the stuff that we had, because we had such an outpouring.
Yeah. Now, how did you get distribution up north?
Oh, just guys drove it up.
Just guys volunteered their trucks.
Yep. Yeah. No one gets paid.
Amazing.
No one in Dad's Cast Rock organization gets paid.
This is interesting, Jared, because I say this to guys, just do something.
Yeah.
Right. And what started out as a community joke, the Dads of Castle Rock, turns into this massive outreach of people wanting to help.
Yep.
And when your heart is aligned with wanting to help people, God blesses it.
Yeah.
Right. It was, we had an incident where when COVID hit, just before the George Floyd riots, we were living in Minnesota. Right. And a buddy of mine had a cafe downtown called Hope Cafe. Now, I'm going to tell you about, I'd say, a large percentage of restaurants shut down in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area when COVID hit. Brian Ingram from the Hope Cafe turned his restaurant into a feeding station. So all the restaurants that were shutting down, he took all their stuff, like all their food, and started gourmet cooking them, and then giving them out to the kids and the families that needed food. And here's what happened. Guys started lining up their trucks and said, I'll deliver for you. I did. I got involved. He says, hey, I need drivers. I'm like, I'm there tomorrow. Like, that was his heart, was just to help and feed the community. Yep. He's like, what am I going to do? Shut my restaurant down and sit at home and wait for the government to tell me to do something?
Right.
He just aligned himself to help people.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of times we just miss the big picture. Yep. When your heart's aligned to help people, get involved.
And it's addictive. It's, I think one of the cool things that, one story I like to tell. So this was the end of last year when those fires were, and it was New Year's Eve, and we had a call that another box truck was coming back down, that we couldn't find a place to deliver it. And I worked all day collecting stuff, went home, got all cleaned up. My wife and I were over at our favorite brewery, Burley, right next door, and having a beer, and we were heading to a New Year's Eve party and to go hang out with some friends. And Robert got the call. Robert called me. He said, dude, truck's coming back. Fully loaded. This is 40-foot box truck, front to back, floor to ceiling, full of cases of water, which I've already moved about 3,000 coming up to that. And he says, come back. He said, I'm going to put a call out on the page and see if I can get some people to come over and help. We had no idea who was going to be. We had about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour from the time that we got the call to the time we had to be at the fairgrounds to unload this truck. Blizzard was rolling in. So I went back home, changed again, and went down there. We had 40 guys show up.
Yep. 40
guys within an hour, and on New Year's Eve, nonetheless. And we were able to unload that truck within an hour.
You know what's sad is a lot of churches can't even mobilize that many guys to come out and help people, or mobilize that kind of response to be able to serve the community.
Right.
And so churches, if you're listening, take this model from the Dads of Castle Rock and align your hearts to help people like the church is supposed to be doing.
Yep. Right? And like you said, we're not a faith-based organization. I do everything I do is with a God-centered heart.
Yep.
And, I know there's some other gentlemen within our group that are in the same boat, feel the same way, but it's fun to see an impact with other individuals and work with other individuals that aren't quite there yet. I'm working on it. But it's having that.
But God is
push.
allowing you to establish relationships with guys that might not interact with faith-based guys.
Yep.
So let me ask you this, Brad. How does someone become involved in Dads of Castle Rock? How can they find you online? Like, tell us what that looks like.
Yep. So again, we do have a Dads of Castle Rock community outreach page. So you can find that on through Google. Just Google, Dads of Castle Rock community outreach. You can find us there. If you are on Facebook, follow the Dads of Castle Rock. Doesn't matter who you are. Dads of Castle Rock community outreach. We have a page there. Follow it. We're trying to get this as much out there as possible. And then if you're a dad, or, we even have some that we're expecting. I have a gentleman that's a younger gentleman that's a good friend of mine, and they've been trying to get pregnant for 5 years. God just blessed them with a pregnancy. They actually had their first ultrasound this morning, and I had him join. He said, to me, you're a dad. You've been trying to get pregnant. You want to be a father. You're dad. You're in. Let's get you into the group. And if you live or work in Castle Rock and you're dad, you're in. Could be a grandpa, doesn't matter, but you're in. And then we're looking at duplicating this model. So we're getting calls. We've gotten a lot of national exposure. So we're duplicating this model elsewhere. So there is a Dads of Parker, Dads of Albert County. There's actually a Dads of Long Island City, New York. So
yeah, I remember you saying there's going to be a nationwide movement of these dads across the nation, which, man, praise the Lord.
Yep.
That at least there's going to be an opportunity, right? Even if you're a guy of faith,
right,
find the organization, infiltrate the organization, and make yourself available. Because, Brad and I'm always watching on the Dads of Castle Rock, and we've had a couple of guys where we've said, "Hey, did you talk to that guy?
Yeah.
Like, hey, he's hurting." And a couple of those guys have gotten into your study. I know that for sure.
Yep.
We do this thing called Final Thoughts. What advice would you give some guys right now that are listening that might be going through some relationship difficulties?
Yep.
Maybe they want to quit their marriage. Maybe their wife wants to quit the marriage. What would you tell them right now? Because listen, you've got some experience in this area.
I do. Yeah.
And if you can go back to talk to that guy, way back when, what would you say?
Well, like I said, dating a wife is obviously a critical thing. Being cognitive of love languages, I'm a firm believer of those and identifying those. But, really at the end of the day, it's keeping God centered in the middle of it, and pray to God about your family and pray together. I think one of the biggest, strongest foundations for Christian marriages is praying together, having Bible study. Actually, I started the Promise Principles practice with my whole family. And so with my wife and I and my girls,
we do it too.
And it's awesome. It's just the formats is outstanding, and it's just fun. I actually start crying when my girls, our first one we did, and how they just grabbed it.
Some people that are, and I'll say a little bit more orthodox in the church, right? And maybe I'll even call them legalistic. That word legalistic, right? They're like, well, what? You're just reading the scriptures and then, talking about what God speaks to you. I said, well, getting into the discipline of reading scriptures is actually a good thing.
Yes.
Right. And if I'm doing it with my family, especially, it's my responsibility to ensure that they're understanding the scriptures correctly.
Correct.
Right. I'm not going to let my son or my daughter go off on some weird tangent and say, well, God told me to do this and they misinterpret the scriptures.
Right.
That's my responsibility as the leader of my family.
Yeah.
Right. So I love it as a tool to at least get into the habit and discipline, and our kids in the habit of the discipline of opening the scriptures and actually reading it.
Yeah.
Because God speaks through his word.
Yeah.
And we're told in the word that his word is alive and it's powerful and it's sharper than any two-edged sword. And if I believe that, I believe God is going to speak through his word.
Absolutely.
Via the Holy Spirit to my kids and to me. And again, it's my job to take the lead. So I like that. I like the fact that you're leading your family in the scriptures.
Yep. But I think the biggest thing as men, we like to keep everything bottled up. So I think the biggest thing, especially with the Dads of Castle Rock and everything, seek counsel. And seek counsel through the church, keep counsel through scripture. It doesn't have to be a therapist. A lot of people, especially guys, I'm not going to go to therapy. Seek counsel. I talk to so many guys, and whether it's just being an ear or throwing some advice out, don't go to the guys that are just want to throw back some whiskey shots and just talk about how much of a, whatever your wife is, and talk ill of your wife. Talk to guys that are actually going to talk you through the circumstances. See if you can talk you off the ledge of, unfortunately, divorce is becoming such an easy way out for everybody. it's so common. I was reading, I can't remember if it was in that book or not, but they were talking about the percentage of divorces. So the percentage of divorces on the first, and it was in that Promise Principle book. And then, the second, I think it was like 62%. The third marriage, it's like almost 80% are going to end up in divorce. And it's crazy how divorce is just that quick answer for people. But seek counsel, seek counsel together.
Seek godly counsel.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Because the Bible tells us that in the multitude of counselors, right, there's wisdom.
Yep.
And I learned a new acronym this last week. The acronym is HOT. Right? As men, we need to be honest, open, and transparent with one another.
Yep.
And that's missing as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, right, like a lot of times when we see each other, Brad, it's like, hey, man, how you doing? I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times we go, well, is he really good?
Right.
And, we, like our friend, right? I kept texting him and calling him. Hey, man, how you doing? I'm good.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
You haven't called me back or texted me in the last couple of weeks. You're not good.
Yeah.
So my next step is I'm going to drive over your house if you don't meet me for coffee next week. All right, I'll meet you for coffee.
Yeah.
Okay.
People come to me and I tell them point blank, I'm going to be very open and honest.
Yes.
I that's how I live my entire life. I'm very open and honest. I want everybody open and honest with me. I've got pretty broad shoulders. I don't take things to heart too much. Be open and honest with me. I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to tell you some things that you might not want to hear.
Yes. And I think the other side of that is if you're a man that's being the recipient of the honest, open, and transparent, be graceful and be confident or in confidence.
Yep.
Take what you're getting and don't blab it to 10,000 people. Be trustworthy as a friend and as a brother. Right. Because a lot of times that's what establishes trust.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm sharing with you, Brad, and we're praying through something and I know that I can trust you, that I don't go talk to one of our other friends and they go, hey, man, Brad told me what was going on. I go, I ain't never telling Brad nothing again.
Right. Exactly.
Like that guy, I can't trust that dude.
Absolutely.
But if I know that I can trust Brad, I'm going to go back to Brad. And then he's going to know I can trust me, Michael, or we can trust Jared. We know that it's not going to go outside of our circle. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's critical.
So that's your final thought?
That's my final thought.
Final thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't have a group of men that you're running with, find some men that you can trust. Be open, honest, and transparent with them. Confess your sins on one another and watch God move mightily.
It's awesome. So we've gotten some deep conversation in Promise Principles. They tend to run over. We finished our Bible study, but then the conversation carries on afterwards, and it's great.
Yeah, that's when a lot of those conversations happen the best. I mean, here, it's like we have a jiu-jitsu class a couple hours after the Promise Principle.
Yeah.
So, but the sweet time of fellowship that occurs after that, sometimes we wrap up early, and it's like, oh, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
We get some deep fellowship and prayer time with guys that are struggling or hurting.
It's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jared, do you have anything?
I mean, obviously on counsel, I mean, one of the things I used to always run to is I would always run to the counsel that I knew was going to support me and give me the answer I wanted to hear.
Spot on.
But, and I think that's too often like, hey, my wingman, he's got my back. He's going to be like, yeah, bro, you should go. You should be angry at your wife. You should go out and get drunk tonight. It's like, don't run to those guys. Run to the guys that truly care about you. Because the guys that care about you carry not just about the now, but actually care deeply about your longevity, and guys that care about your eternal walk with God.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad, watch this. Am I that guy, Jared?
Absolutely.
I'm the guy.
No,
I am not that guy.
you're not the guy. Absolutely not.
No.
I'm the guy that tell Jared, listen.
Right. That is pretty funny.
I'm going to give it to you, bro.
Right. It's funny you say that because I've known couples that have gone to a therapist.
Yeah.
And it's like the therapist kind of sided with the husband. The wife's like, I don't like that one. We're going to find another one. And then they sided with the husband again. And the next therapist, I don't like that one either. We're going to find another one.
Right.
It's like,
well, listen, that's the other thing, the therapist thing. I say this, that we're always looking for a clinical diagnosis to our spiritual problems.
Right.
You have two sinful people trying to navigate a broken world.
Yep.
Right. The cause is sin.
Yeah, absolutely.
The solution is biblical, that we need to lay down our pride, right? And be open to what God speaks to us.
And let God fix our
right. So,
spirit.
I don't want to say I'm not a big fan of counseling. I'm a big fan of biblical counseling.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of someone that wants to mentor and encourage me. We have marriage mentors, Mr. Dave. And did I tell you? I told you the story before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Song and I were on our way out of town, and Mr. Dave was driving us. Well, actually, he was in the back seat. He's like, hey, before you guys take off, I just want to talk to you about a few things, because he had been living at our house for 2 weeks while he was doing work here at the academy. And I'm thinking, oh, he's going to tell us how awesome we're doing our marriage. It wasn't how awesome we were doing. It was like, hey, I noticed a few of these little, shots across the bow that you guys are taking at one another. And immediately, my ego started creeping up.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew he was right. Right? Because I know that when I start getting that little, I go, oh, there's truth. This is truth coming across my bow. I know what he's saying is true. And it took me a few minutes. And then I said, thank you for loving me so much and loving us so much to speak that into our lives.
Absolutely.
Because he was helping us avert disaster, right? The guardrails that we talk about, Jared.
Yeah.
Right. So
Love
if you don't have men like that in your life, men, go get them.
Find them.
And so thank you for listening, and we'll talk again next week.